What I would love to see, and this leads into one of the big stories of the week, is Neville. As a surprise entrant, I'd like to see him win the whole thing and then go on to wrestle Jay Lethal for the Ring of Honor Championship on the main card and win it. And then, of course, we find out that Neville has signed a contract with Ring of Honor and he's their champion now. But Pro Wrestling Sheet had the story. They had the exclusive this week reporting that Neville is no longer under contract with WWE. Neville has been sort of in purgatory now for months and months and months. I think really all year. It was late last year that he basically took his ball and went home. He wasn't happy and he was still under contract with the company, but he was doing the Cruiserweight thing on 205 Live. I think he had lost to Enzo Amore, and I guess that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But and we don't know that. We still don't know exactly why he left and what exactly he was so upset about. But we don't know if he's under some sort of non-compete, and if so, for how long. Just because the story came out this week doesn't mean that only as of this week he is no longer under contract. It could be that he is now completely free and clear, and maybe this has been the case for a few months now and the non-compete is up. We just don't know. But it may well not be legally possible for him to be on the show next Saturday. But if he can be, him winning and wrestling Jay Lethal for the title, I think would be awesome. Cody did tweet something out very randomly last week. He literally just put a tweet out that said, "I miss Neville." So maybe that wasn't so random after all. I don't know exactly what it was that made Neville quit the company, if it really was working with and losing to Enzo Amore, because I heard other stories that said he and Enzo got along great, that they were friendly with each other. So I'm only joking when I say that. Maybe it had something to do with it, maybe it didn't. I tend to think that he probably just was overall unhappy with his position at the time. It could just be that he felt stifled being relegated to the Cruiserweight division, even though he was champion there for a long time, and they sort of built a division around him after he turned heel. At the end of the day, he still, in WWE, was quote-unquote only a Cruiserweight. And Neville is so much better than that. That's the problem if you're in that division. Great as the matches may be, especially since Triple H took over, if it's not part of the main shows, nobody really pays attention to it, or they don't have time to watch another show. And frankly, even when we saw the Cruiserweights on Raw, people didn't really seem to give much of a shit. But here with Neville, here's a guy who had that, and I keep going back to this match in my mind because it's one of my favorite TV matches in the last decade. I remember that great match he had, it was August of 2015 on Raw, for the WWE Championship against Seth Rollins. And for all the people who say, well, it wouldn't be believable for Neville to be pushed at that level, or for Neville to be wrestling for the WWE title. I don't remember what city or town they were in that night, but you go back and watch that match. I'll say this much. I didn't see very many people in the crowd not buying into the idea that Neville might be able to win the championship. They sure seemed into that match. They sure seemed to be standing up in some cases or on the edge of their seat and reacting as though they wanted badly to see this guy win the championship. I didn't see people sitting on their hands. I didn't see people chanting boring. I didn't see people holding up signs that said, "Oh, vanilla midget," and all the other idiotic things I see people online saying. That was a fantastic match. Those two tore the house down. And I'm pretty sure they weren't in Brooklyn or LA or Toronto or any, oh, they're in a smart city. Again, the stupid shit that I see people say online is just mind-numbing. It was a great match, and he was a nose hair away from winning the championship. And the place came unglued. Watch that Red Arrow spot. Watch that Red Arrow near fall, where he almost got the 3 count. I don't care if he's 5'6" or 7 feet. This guy is too talented to be wasting away as a cruiserweight. So he was frustrated. He took his ball and he went home. It's WWE's loss. If he hits the indie scene, he'll be the hottest free agent out there. And any promotion that can lock this guy down to a contract would be better off for it. But this was a big blunder by WWE. And whether he's all in or he has to take a 90-day vacation first, there has never been a better time to be an independent wrestler, to make your own schedule, call your own shots, make pretty good money by all accounts. Especially if you're a name right out of WWE. I mean, I know he's been on ice for a while because he hasn't been on TV and, he's sort of been out of sight, out of mind. But the minute he hits the indie scene, believe me, he's not going to have trouble finding work. And as somebody who came from WWE, and there's this perception that, well, he was mistreated, he wasn't used the way that he should have been used, believe me, he'll do very well for himself. He can make a very good living. He could have the freedom and the fun that he probably would not have working for WWE. Look, if you're not happy, then why settle? If you're unhappy at your job, unless you need the paycheck, so you kind of stick it out because you got no other options. In a case like his, believe me, he's got options. If he's not happy, then go home. Why should he stay and be miserable? Go somewhere else and make them want you even more. Who's to say he won't be back in WWE in 3 years and be an even bigger name at that point? You can count a whole bunch of guys. Drew McIntyre is one of the more recent ones. Now, I know Drew, he looks the part. I think Drew is going to do, well for himself just by virtue of how he looks. That's just the nature of the business, I guess. But, Drew McIntyre went away. He was a joke. When he left, he was a joke. He was booked as a joke. He went away. He reinvented himself. He came back. He's like a completely different person. And you could find other examples of that as well. Who's to say the same thing won't happen with Neville? Who's to say that Triple H doesn't convince him to sign some sort of special deal to come back, but to come back only as part of that new NXT UK division? They have a new show that they're about to launch. They have this whole new division with Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate and Wolfgang and all these different people that they're going to be doing. Why not bring in Neville as one of the top stars for that brand? Let him wrestle independents, but be part of their new NXT brand over in the UK. Working with Triple H, who seemed to do right by Neville when they were in NXT. Then he hit the main roster and, after a while, not so much. But, Neville and NXT working under Triple H seemed to do pretty well. I wouldn't rule that out either as a possibility. If I'm Triple H, I don't know what his deal is with Vince McMahon and those people, but I'm certainly reaching out and seeing if there's any interest.